what it takes to become successful in the art world. And I said, I think 90% of it is just surviving the attrition rate. That, you know, we're both too dumb to quit. Well, I'll speak for myself. I was always too dumb to quit.
Feel your pain, brother.
Yeah, it's because it takes so much to get to where Mark is right now, the quality level, the intellectual level of these, and technical quality of these photographs, that something, you know, like a painter, I can only speak about painters. There's something in you that drives you to do that thing, even though it may never matter if you do another one ever, you know. And Mark has been driven by these ideas that are, I've never seen anything like it. I mean, it's not even fair to compare to say, like I've been telling people, Mark is the next Ansel Adams. They're very different, you know, photographers. But the technical aspects of your photography are that of Ansel's quality. He had, of course, a different reasoning for doing what he did and the time that he did it, you know, for national park preservations and things like that. But also to modernize landscape photography, and I think this takes it to another level. And for me, I haven't seen anything like Ansel since you. Since meeting you and your work. So I'm really thrilled that you agreed to do this and went through the expense of making this museum quality show for us. So, you know, a lot of people it's been really interesting as I get the feedback, because we opened 2 weeks ago. We did a soft opening, and then we were supposed to have a reception, but the weather didn't really, in Wisconsin, agree, you know, plan a picnic and you're going to be inside. So the feedback I've gotten from people is just amazing how these works, and I'm sure that you felt this as you look at these pieces, that you connected. Even though you didn't witness that specific storm or that specific place, especially, you know, coming from, you know, a small town like Wausau, and, you know, up here, you know, north of Madison, we're much more agricultural. To see these images, you know, brings back so many memories, and emotions are always attached to those memories. And I think it's a powerful thing. And from what I'm hearing, it's doing a great job for people making that connection and starting dialogue about who they are, where they grew up, what that reminds them of. And I've seen more dialogue happen with this show than all the painting and sculpture shows that we've done here in the last 7 years. Paintings can be very intimidating. There's something very earthy and, you know, elemental about what these are, but like a good painting, just because you identify with what the visual, what the image is, the representational image, doesn't mean you fully understand everything else that's going on in the plane. And I'd like to have Mark talk about that, because I think you're brilliant. And Mark Weller, Waunakee, Wisconsin.
Well, there's two motifs in this show. One is the preciousness of water. Every one of these pieces has water in it, either gaseous or liquid or frozen. And the other overarching theme is time. And I started out as an astrophotographer. And, you know, we could go out on a clear night, we could all get together, and we could look up at the stars, and we could point, and we could say, everybody see that star, and we would have agreement, you know, yeah, right there, you know, the North Star, look at that. And here's the kind of secret, that we are seeing star light, and the origin of that star may be so many thousands of light years away that star no longer exists. It's burnt out, and yet it's taken it's so far away, it's taken so much time to get to our eyes at that particular moment. It's what the scientists call the fourth dimension. And I got thinking, how would you incorporate the fourth dimension into traditional landscape photography? Again, we all got together, we did a little class photo, and snap, your 3 dimensions, your height, your width, your depth. And what I'm trying to do is the fourth dimension. And how I do that is, particularly in these cloud images, these black and white, which David said, I'll give you a show, but I want to see a lot of black and white. So you can imagine what I've been doing for the last 18 months here. That's what I do is I put the camera on the tripod, and I'll have a foreground, and I'm at the mercy of nature, because Mother Nature's got to serve up the right kind of clouds. You don't see me working on the blue sky day. And I'll take 100 images, and each exposure is separated by some unit of time, a second, or 2 seconds, or 5 seconds, or 10 seconds, whatever. So I'm collecting data, images, over 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 7 minutes, whatever. And I'll take all of that data, that time, that 6, 7, 8 minutes of time, and compress that into a single photograph. And those are what you see in the room here. That one there. This cloud is exploding. This is the Wisconsin River. I am capturing all the movement that cloud did over 8 or 9 minutes. And you see that repeated. And of course, the thing I love about photographing clouds is, guess what? They're never in reruns. Every time I go out, it's a new adventure, it's a new look. The other motif we talked about is water. Water is life. Water is precious. We are so lucky to live in Wisconsin because we are surrounded by world-class water. 2 Great Lakes, Michigan and Superior, the Mississippi River, and just 2 blocks from here, the Wisconsin River. These are magnificent resources. But I get nervous. I get very nervous about water. It can be your best friend. Every living thing on this planet, every single living thing on this planet needs water. You take water away and everything dies. Water is critical. You see a lot of farm scenes, and I want you to think about what happens above the horizon, clouds. What happens with clouds? We go from gaseous to liquid. It hits the crops. Crops grow, we eat. So there's this symbiotic relationship. We turn on a tap. We do that a dozen times a day and probably don't think twice about it. We take it for granted. But it can also swing and be your worst enemy. Look at California the last 2 decades, 3 decades. They simply ran out of water. They were in a drought. Lake Mead, you saw pictures where it just kept getting further down. You saw the bathtub ring around Lake Mead, and just like that, boom, they're having catastrophic floods. So there's an environmental theme to this show in that how we manage water. And if you notice in the other room, there's flowers, wildflowers, there are prairie flowers. Prairies are, I can't think of the right word, instrumental in controlling water. They're like a sponge. And yet we have plowed under and developed probably 99% of the prairies. Same with wetlands. If you look in the other room, there's a color photograph called Reeds. It's taken up in the Bayfield Peninsula. And again, wetlands are critical for preventing flooding. In the other room, picture an image from Iceland, a glacier that is melting. And if you talk to the people in Iceland, they tell you that their island is hemorrhaging. They use that word hemorrhaging because all that bottled up water, it's in a frozen state, is melting, and they don't want that, and it's not good for them, it's not good for anybody in Greenland. So I won't rattle on and on about each picture, but I want you, when you look at them, think about time and think about water and how those two play and what your role is in trying to get a sustainable, reasonable, workable solution as we seem to be swinging closer and closer to the edge with climate change.
So I'm sure everybody has questions, so don't be afraid to jump in at any given point, okay? I'd like to make sure that everybody gets your questions answered. And I do have questions about digital versus film. How likely would you have been able to do this without the onset of digital photography? And what kind of, do you think there's any kind of a sacrifice with digital, or if it's, what are the positives and negatives, I guess, of what I'm getting at with?
To answer the first part, if this was a film project, I could not do it. I don't have the, what's the word I want? Digital just allows you to capture things differently than film. First of all, when I go out, I'll do 100 images, as I said, that'll end up. I'll try that 5, 6, 7, 8 times. So I'll have 800, 900, 1,000 exposures. I don't know what the price of film is, but man, you run through 1,000 exposures and you've got $1,000, and I can't afford to run out and drop $1,000 every time I try to do this. So there's just the financial. But the editing allows, and you talk about Ansel Adams, you know, I look at his, my wife gave me a calendar, an Ansel Adams calendar, so it's in the bathroom. I look at it every morning and I study, look at his contrast, look at his lights, look at his darks. I could not do this without digital, and it gives me a set of tools that I guess just allows me to do it, to make it long story short. Yeah, it gives me freedom and options that simply don't exist before. Oh, go ahead, you were first.
So, you get more data?
I get more what?
You get more data when you're using with digital.
Yeah. Yes, I think I get what you mean. I have more control over what the final product looks like in digital than I would in film. And that's no small difference. Again, I'll come back with several hundred images, and to manage those and get it to make sense. And I'll fess up, I've got a terrible batting record. I've done over 2,000 attempts. There's 32 images in this show. So don't invest in me, because you'll be disappointed. It's a labor of love, and I get surprised. There are times where I go out and I say, my God, yes, the clouds are perfect, and I come back and it doesn't work. And then I've gone out and I've tried this, I've tried that, and I'll say, I'll try one more thing. Oh my God, it's just, I hit a home run. So it's not an exact science at all, and it's a lot of trial and error. The biggest lesson I learned, and this took me years, is to underexpose. Think about it, clouds. That picture there, I like this picture, and that's a Wisconsin river, so it's taken locally. You've seen those bright blue sky days and these big, puffy, white, cumulus clouds. From a photographer's standpoint, that is really, really, really bright. So you have to somehow compensate for that over whiteness and make sure that the darks and the trees and the water or the crops are not underexposed. And good luck. It's more luck than science. It's more art.
So your tool is digital camera. You're a digital photographer because that's your tool, but you're not a manipulator, what do they call it, with a manipulated
Like a
photo?
Photoshop?
Well, not just Photoshop, but all the other kind of weird things you can do where
Yeah.
your original image is like who cares?
The only software I use allows me to take these 100 images and push them into a single image. So that's digital magic. But I mean, and then I use Lightroom to tweak a little bit. Contrast and the stuff that Ansel Adams used to do with his hands.
What would he say?
I think you'd say bravo.
Yeah, like holy cow, you know? Instead of having to dodge and burn and all that.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're right. I do feel, I'm kind of proud of this, that I'm on the cutting edge. I'm doing something that not everybody is doing. And I talked to a couple other photographers. I hate using that word. I prefer lens-based artists. And I know that sounds highfalutin, but I don't take graduation pictures, okay? I'm a lens-based artist. And I forget where I was going. I'm sure it was a brilliant thought. I forget. Go ahead. Roger, you had a big question.
You know, I was just wondering, with all this data that you collect, you know, when you take a single photograph, or not a single one, but how long does it take to come up with your ideal photograph? How much time do you spend in the darkroom or on your computer?
Yeah, it can be several hours, sometimes several days. The challenge is I take 100. Sometimes I take 200. You know, it just depends on what the clouds are doing. So now I've got this set of data. What would 72 look like? So then I do the whole thing. I say, okay, what would 42 look like? What would 120 look like? So you have, as Henry Kissinger once said, hang on, I forget the quote, absence of alternatives clears the mind marvelously. Well, let me tell you, I come back and I've got more damn alternatives and different ways to put this together than I need. And that's, you know, you try to find the perfect, the best of all of those options that you have.
And all those options leads me to this question. Let's say if you could stack all these up without melding them, and you've got 100 photographs, right? Does this get so technical that you say, this fourth one has got to go? Push them, pull them out. That 12th one has got to go.
Sometimes, yeah.
This one, you know,
Yeah, you're
sifting through them.
you're shooting, and some kid with a mountain bike, zoom! All right, number 52, 53, 54 is out. But you gotta watch it because, you know, you've got this gentle, beautiful expansion of the clouds, and if you start dropping too many, you don't have this smoothness. You gotta chunk, 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 chunk. So it's all, each one is unique, special, and
It's quite a balancing act.
yeah, you sit there for hours. And then the thing that really is a challenge is you think you've got it figured out, and you set it off for a day or two or three, and then you go back, and then you come to the conclusion, what was I thinking? And you dump it all and you start again. So some of these takes weeks, not that I'm working every moment, but you stop and you let that rest and you clear your mind and you come back with a fresh, like painting.
Yeah, very much like that.
You have to kind of just wait till it ripens and everybody's happy. GG.
As the artist behind the lens, when you're out, like you're essentially plein air
Yep.
working. So do people come up to you and what is their reaction or interaction with you?
I try to pick places where I'm alone so I don't have to do that, but it inevitably happens. And they don't get it. You know, camera, I have a little remote control I put in there and it'll go click. 1001, 1002, click, 1001, 1002. Hey, what are you doing? I'm taking pictures. Okay, zoom, zoom. Off they go. So I'm not rude, but I don't
Yeah.
engage as,
You're in the middle of the process.
yeah, I'm working, and I'm thinking, and Bob Rashid, the late Bob Rashid, my mentor, once told me the best thing you can do when you make art is to slow down. And I find it really distracting if somebody comes and wants a full explanation of what I'm doing. So I'm not rude, but I may not be real engaging either. So, yeah. And you're right, there's a loneliness of plein air. You know, I'm out in places where oftentimes there's no one else, and I may be there for 3 or 4 hours. And if you think that's lonely, my editing bay is right next to the water heater and the furnace and the soft water thing. I'm in the basement, and no one comes down there while I'm doing it. So it really is kind of a solo act. You know, I know other art can be very much a team sport, but this is not. This is just me.
Slow down, but all of your work has so much motion.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And also, some of them in the back especially, almost we have a tapestry and weaving,
Yes.
like natural materials, hemp and straw or whatever.
There's a piece back there that I just love. Was taken in Florida at the Corkscrew Swamp, which is significant because it is the last stand of old growth cypress trees. And you know, Florida at one point was covered with cypress trees. Well, they need land, they need, you know, building materials, etc., and you know, lumber in this area. You know, it just gets cut until finally the last remaining was this, I think, 300 or 400 acres in this swamp. And so what you're seeing there is not a stack of the trees, but you're seeing a stack of the reflection of the trees on the water. And of course, there's a little ripple there, and that one is not on a tripod, it's handheld, and you get a very impressionistic kind of feel, because every time you physically pull the trigger on your camera, you are introducing just a little bit of shake. You're not a human tripod. And what I liked about not shooting the trees, but shooting the reflection of the trees, what I'm trying to get folks to think about is holding up a reflective mirror. Are you in this picture as part of the problem or part of the solution? So each one of these, there's a fairly well, you be the judge, but a fairly well thought out motivation in a story I'm trying to articulate. Roger.
Well, I've been in photography a long time, and I appreciate art. And I noticed that all of your photography is art-based and photography-based because you have to know composition. You need to know how to set it up, put proportions, and so forth. And I see that in what you're doing. And I appreciate, you know, your artistic.
No, thank you.
How far wide have you traveled to capture images?
I'm sorry?
How far wide have you traveled? or just Wisconsin?
Well, most of this is Wisconsin. Just the nature of, I chase clouds when they're there. So I'll be doing something, I'll look up, oh, this is a good day to shoot, and I'll zip off. But in addition to that, you can help me. So Iceland, France, there are two honoring Claude Monet. We went to his house. We were very upset he wasn't home. And I'm never forgetting that guy. Claude, come on, man. On his water lily pond, and we had an extraordinary and lucky moment. We went over there. We got a driver out of Paris, and the guy looks at me. He says, "We're leaving at the crack of dawn because the traffic is just going to be terrible." So it turns out it wasn't so bad. We didn't really need to leave as early as we did. And of course, all the way up, I'm just filling this guy, talking his ear off about Monet is my hero. I'm influenced by him. We're so excited to be there. We show up an hour before it opens. He said, I know a guy. And next thing I know, we were given exclusive entrance into Claude Monet's lily pond for an hour by ourselves. And it was magical. So France, there's some Florida.
The west, you went out west?
Yes, the Grand Tetons,
Wyoming.
Wyoming, what's the big park up there? Yellowstone. There's that paint pot region. So there's a triptych that's very colorful. Maybe one or two more, but that comes. And 3 blocks from my house.
You have a very unique way, and maybe a connection that's bigger than I'm thinking, with climate change and differences in climates that used to be and aren't anymore, and kind of like bringing that as a topic in a more artistic way.
This is a farm field, and the clouds were just building. This is looking east at sunset. So the sun is behind me, lighting this up. This, to your point, this scene no longer exists. There are 400 houses on this. And that was my go-to place because it was so close to my house. Part of the motivation is my first career. I was a documentary filmmaker for public television. I spent some time in Alaska. And then most of that was at Wisconsin Public Television, their headquarters down in Madison. And one day I got an assignment to do a biographical film on the life of Gaylord Nelson, our former governor and former senator, and the father of Earth Day. Probably in the 60s, the guy who introduced the concept of ecology to a national, he inserted that into the national dialogue. And, you know, as a producer, as a writer, you do your job and you move on. And, you know, I don't have friends. When I was a producer, I had sources. You know, and it's a big difference. It's a big difference. You know, you want to keep your editorial integrity up. For whatever reason, we hit it off and we became best friends. Or I thought I was best friends. I'm sure he had 1,000 of them. And that led to a path of meeting some other folks, and it was ultimately life-changing. Life-changing. He had a friend who owned several hundred acres in the middle of the Shawinigan forest. And we would go up there basically to get out of Washington, to get out of the hubbub. The guy had a pontoon boat. I'm not saying lots of booze was involved, but I could be wrong on that point. Go fishing, have folks over, and that just led to, like I said, it was life-changing. Our host was a guy who was with the Friends of the, he was the founder of the Friends of the Apostle Islands National Lakeshore. And I had another buddy of mine, we'd go to this guy's house every summer and photograph the Milky Way. And this was 2008. We were still on film. And finally, the digital cameras kind of caught up where we could actually do this. So from 2002 to 2008, every summer we would go up there and try to capture the Milky Way. And we failed and failed and failed and failed. In 2008, we got a nice shot. We got a killer shot. And, you know, this was just kind of an intellectual exercise. We had no idea where this was going to lead. We printed one out, framed it up, ran back up to this guy lived in Mellon, outside of Mellon in the Shawinigan Forest. And we gave it to him as a gift. That was in September. In October, he passed away. This was my father figure, this was my buddy, this was beer drinking, fishing. We'd go down to Florida and try to catch tarpon. And it just had a very, very nice intergenerational relationship. To try to somehow thank him for all of his hospitality, all of his kindness, we approached the National Park Service and the Friends of the Apostle Islands to say, we do this high-end Milky Way photography. Now, keep in mind the time frame. You go out tonight with a cell phone and get a Milky Way shot, but back then, there was very few people who could figure that out. NASA was first, and then the rest of the list got short very quickly. And we said we would try, no guarantees, we would try to get a killer shot of the Milky Way out on the Apostle Islands with one of your lighthouses. We will then print those and sell them and donate all the proceeds as a fundraiser back to the Park Service in this guy's name. Martin Hansen was his name. And it took a little arm twisting and cajoling, but finally they said, all right. So they brought us out to Outer Island, 30 miles out on Lake Superior. And lo and behold, we got a killer shot. Great, yahoo. And to make a long story short, it was a limited edition print, 100 prints, and the first print went to Ken Salazar. Ken Salazar was President Obama's Secretary of the Department of Interior. He was making an official government visit to the park. The boss shows up, you know, the Secretary of the Department, and they wanted a gift to give to the Secretary in honor of his, in memorial of his gift, or his trip rather. And the press picked up on it. Well, kaboom, we sold out. And I thought, well, that turned out better than I had thought. And I'm patting myself on the back, and the phone rings. And it's the superintendent of the park. And he says, you know, we have more than one lighthouse. And thought that we didn't have a business plan, we didn't know what we were doing. And so we've been invited back every year to come up with another lighthouse and another Milky Way shot. And these were very good sellers. Jamie here was on some of these trips helping us out. And to make a long story short, we raised about $200,000 that we donated to the park in honor of Martin Hansen, the guy who showed us some kindness and showed us some hospitality. Well, that was life-changing. That was absolutely, so, you know, a simple, connect the dots, a simple assignment to do a film ended up filling the walls of this gallery, this museum. I could talk forever, so I'll stop.
Anybody?
I have one. You mentioned the astrophotography before. Could you expand a little bit on maybe what you learned from astrophotography, bringing that in? And are there any techniques that you use in the plein air photography or what you're doing here that you or others are now bringing to the other side?
Astrophotography kind of breaks all the rules. You know, traditional photography, you sit down, I'm going to light you, and I'm going to go click. And that's not astrophotography. The big issue with astrophotography is you need to do long exposures. You know, think about it for a second. You've got these little pinpricks of light, and you want to take a picture of that, you know? It's like trying to take a picture of somebody in a dark room. It just is hard. So you have to elongate the length of exposure. Well, there's an issue, there's a huge issue, and that is, well, you know, let's say you want to go 30 seconds, 40 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. When you're doing that, the Earth continues to spin. That's a problem. So your stars are not pinpricks of light in focus, they are streaks. So you need to counter that. And what you put it on an astro mount that essentially, as the stars appear to move, they're not moving, you're moving, the Earth is moving, but it will counter that, so allow you to do a 3 or 4 minute exposure. And how that relates to this is, it taught me that if you break the rules, you might stumble on something that no one else has thought of, and hence time stacking. I don't mean to imply that I'm the only guy who does time stacking, but it gave me enough permission, I guess, to start breaking the rules. And you know, these 3 rules are the result of that.
That's interesting you say that, breaking the rules. Over the last 7 years, with the caliber of artists that we've brought in here from around the world, that's a very common thread for painters, sculptors, any type of artist. They can't stress enough the successful ones that, you know, and that are actually willing to teach and share their process. One of their main concerns for every artist that they want to share with is, why aren't you playing more? Why aren't you playing more? You know, do 50 pieces in a day and toss them on the street if they don't work. What are you worried about? You know, play more. Do something that's just for the hell of it, see what happens. And you'll actually achieve your goal faster than if you deliberate on one bad idea for a long time. You know,
Yep.
So, you know, that's really neat that you said that there is that, you know, I think that mindset is translating, is coming through in the way people view these, because most people think they're paintings. And I think it's because you have very much a painter mentality about the way you produce your work. So you're really a hybrid.
Well, like I say, I don't identify myself as a photographer. I'm a lens-based artist.
Mm-hmm.
My palette, my brush is a camera.
Probably sounds better in French.
What's that?
Probably sounds better in French.
Yes.
We'll have to flip that one up.
Where do you have them printed?
I print at a place called Picture Salon in Madison, and they're framed by McClellan Street Framing. Prior to that, many of these are Monte art, which we print and frame. This one is done at Monte, which is how I met you. Yeah.
I want to go back to that idea that you were the tripod for a couple of your pieces, and how your connection to water. But if you try to, everyone just stop breathing for a second, you're still going to keep moving because you're mostly water, right?
Mm-hmm.
So do you connect then that internal water to the external water in that?
I've never thought of it that way. I'm much more, I'm not that complicated. I grew up in Manitowoc, right on Lake Michigan. Not right on, but the town is there. My family, my extended family was in the shipbuilding business. I don't mean they ran it, but they were the grunts, welding and doing things of that nature, laying carpet. The saying is, I have sweet water in my veins. Sweet water is a term about fresh water in the Great Lakes. It's sweet water versus salt water out in the oceans and stuff. And I have always been connected, been interested. It's look at these pictures, everyone has got water in them. And it didn't start out that way, but it's the path I've taken, and I'm comfortable with that.
What a beautiful path.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for leading us on it.
Yeah. I don't mean to dominate this. Last question or two. No? Anybody else? I am humbled by this opportunity to come and share my art. I'm humbled to share my story. Enjoy, tell your friends, come on down. These are all limited edition prints. So if you got your eye on one, but your mantelpiece is half the size of these 60 inches, we can print these at any size you want. And we can also, I like the canvas for the big pictures, but we can do a photo paper, metal. There's a lot of other things we can print on. So if that's something that moves you, let me know and we can figure something out.
Yeah, just contact Mark directly. So markmiller.com.
No,
Yeah.
markweller.com, no.
Oh, time stack.
I'm stacking, yeah. I've got a stack of cards on the desk, so grab one on your way out. I've got a couple in my pocket too. But I'm appreciative of your time and your interest. Thank you very much.
Thank you.